It's finally that time. It seems the Model Y from Tesla is finally going to be getting a major update. And well, that makes a lot of sense. We've seen updates across the board, most recently with the Tesla Model 3. We've seen new cars like the Cybertruck. So what's next? Model Y. The Juniper Model Y has been rumored for quite a while, but recently we finally got our first look at what this might be. And considering the Model 3 and the Model Y have always been very similar, we can look at what Tesla did with the Model 3 and kind of apply it to the Model Y and get a pretty good idea of what to expect. Model Y is one of the most popular cars in the world, but it is not perfect. I mean, I've spent extensive time with one, both when it first came out, also my parents own one. The Model Y is a very popular car for many good reasons. But I think there's a few key areas that could easily be improved, and I think will be improved according to the rumors and according to what we've seen from Tesla, that are going to make this car just so much better. Personally, I'm really not that big of a fan of the Tesla Model Y, but I think with these new features that we might see, that might be changing, and this is going to be the go-to. And if you are in the market for a Model Y, this is absolutely not the time to buy. Hold off, because something better is coming pretty soon. So we've heard about this Juniper Model Y and the rumors for a while now, but we haven't really heard that much about what's actually coming. Most of it has been guesswork and just kind of piecing together ideas from what we've seen from other Tesla products, but that's probably a safe bet. The Model 3 and the Model Y are very similar cars, so when we got the Model 3 Highland, it's safe to assume that a lot of the things we see there are going to be applied to the Model Y as well. And I think the easiest one to point out, and the one that we finally actually have some, I guess, quote unquote confirmation of, is a design change. I would completely expect to get a very similar design to what we have with the new Model 3. And that means new headlights, new taillights, and with these leaked photos, it seems like there might even be this cool light bar in the back just to elevate it a little bit more. Light bars are like the most popular thing in cars right now, so not a huge surprise to see that here. But you can see from these renders that it will be a nice sleek update, and it will certainly fit in line with what the Model 3 is doing. Not like a huge surprise, but it makes sense. And similarly in the interior, if we look at what the Model 3 did, all of that stuff I expect to come here. I mean, if you look at the Model Y, personally, it's not my favorite Tesla. It's actually my least favorite one. Every time I have to drive one, I don't know, I just don't like it. That's a personal opinion, but one of the things about it, especially now, for some reason it just feels dated. It's not really that old. It came out in 2020, but the design is the same thing we had from the Model 3, more or less, that we got back in 2018. So it's an old design. And now when you look at the other cars Tesla offers, more specifically the Model 3, it's due for a refresh. In fact, Tesla themselves seems to agree that this interior looks outdated, because in China they released a new version only there where it had the interior lighting and it got rid of the wood dash instead of this more fabric looking one like what we have in the new Highland. And that is all they changed with the Model Y. Everything else was the same. So they updated that knowing there needed to be a little bit something fresh there. So I'd expect the new steering wheel, the ambient lighting, the heated and cooled seats, the new screen, all of that stuff should be coming, and it's going to just give that, new fresh coat of paint that I think is really needed. And I think those updates are kind of the obvious ones. I mean, like I said, we look at the Model 3, apply it to the Y, makes sense. And when we see these leaked photos, it kind of gives us an idea that this is in fact what's coming. But I think where it gets a little bit more interesting is to talk about what else is coming that is not exactly confirmed, but we have heard rumors about. And one area with the Model Y that I think is very important is the ride quality. That is a big complaint people had with the Model Y we have now, is that it's not all that comfortable. The suspension is not great. And while personally that's never been an issue for me, it is something that I think Tesla can do better. And again, pulling from the Model 3, the suspension tuning was something they really focused on. So I think bringing that over to the Model Y makes a lot of sense. And I think personally, like just what I would like to see is for this to be a much more comfortable experience. Yes, in the performance Model Y, you can make that more sporty, but in the regular versions, this is an SUV or it's a crossover, let's make it as comfortable as possible. Yeah, it's a EV, so it's gonna still be a little bit sporty by its nature, but I think it could be a lot more comfortable when it comes to the suspension tuning, and I think that's definitely something we're going to see. Another kind of big complaint, at least with people who are kind of more in the know with Teslas, is the 4680 Model Ys, that they just were kind of sucky. The power performance was not great. More specifically, the charging performance was not great. I'd expect most of that to be a non-issue when this new Model Y comes out, but there is one rumor that we've seen that there might be a pretty drastic bump in range, up to 26%. That would be a big deal. And I think it makes sense for Tesla to offer a really high range option on the Model Y. Like I said, it's the most popular Tesla, and I feel like there would be a lot of people who would see like a 400-mile range, see that number and just automatically want to buy that one, because there's still range anxiety. That is still a thing with EVs. And when you're already kind of in the market for the Model Y, if you also see that it has like the best range, well, that would make a lot of sense from a buyer's perspective. So hopefully that rumor is true. And kind of going along with that, I'd expect to see some sort of bump in performance, probably nothing huge. That might be reserved for the performance Model Y, similar to what we have with the Model 3 Highland. So I think from a performance and range perspective, we will see a noticeable jump. I wouldn't expect it to be like a totally different car, but some improvements there are to be expected. And I think when you look at every area of the car, there's going to be some major improvements and changes that are just going to make this a much better car. Now, interestingly, the Model Y is not really due for an update, at least if we go by like the Model 3 timeline, since that came out in 2018 and we didn't get the Highland until now. The Model Y didn't come out until 2020, so it could keep going for a little while longer. And that kind of goes to when we are going to see this Juniper Model Y. And well, Elon ruled out that we will be seeing that this year, so don't expect that. The latest rumor though is that we will see it sometime in Q1 of 2025, which is honestly not that far from now. It's just a few months, and we may be seeing this brand new car. But similarly to what we saw with the Model 3, as we get closer to this release date and as Tesla has to test it more and more in real world roads, we will likely get a glimpse at this new Model Y on the road with its camouflage and everything, but we will probably get a real world look, or at least a better real world look than what we've seen. We'll get that pretty soon. And as we get closer, we will hear more and more about it. And I think once this update is out, it's going to be a very solid lineup that Tesla has on offer. If you want the flagship crazy cars, they've got the Cybertruck, Model S Plaid, Model X. But if you want just a regular car that is just solid in pretty much every way, you have your two options. You got the sedan or you've got the crossover. I think these things are going to sell like crazy, even though they already do. And maybe, just maybe, the Juniper Model Y might change my mind on the Y, because like I said, I kind of hate this car. Maybe I'll make a different video on why I don't like it. It's my least favorite Tesla, but I think Juniper might just fix that.